Right here and on the record, Donald Trump. Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle, in for my friend Greta Van Susteren. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump is making news for calling Secretary Hillary Clinton a bigot. Clinton first tried painting Trump as a racist as she tried to fend off attacks for a pay-for-play scheme at the Clinton Foundation. Trump responded by saying she's the one that's the bigot. So what does he mean by that? Donald Trump is here to go on the record. Thanks for joining us tonight, Mr. Trump.
Well, thank you, Kimberly.
All right. So people are asking, you called Secretary Clinton a bigot, but you say she is the one actually using race baiting and pandering to get African-American voters. Do you still stand by that statement, or do you think the rhetoric has gone too far in the campaign?
Well, I don't know too far or not. I can tell you that they have done, and she has done, a terrible job for the African-Americans. You look at their numbers, you look at what's going on statistically. 40% in poverty, 58% of African-American youth can't get jobs. It's on and on. You look at the crime rates, you look at education in the inner cities, you look at, just take a look at what's happening with respect to crimes. And it's a terrible job that she has done, terrible job that the Democrats have done. They've run the inner cities for years, and look what you have. They're like war zones. In many cases, war zones, and in many cases, they're worse than war zones.
Yeah, that's a real problem, I can tell you, having been, a former prosecutor and working in areas like that, in gang areas and communities, that you see really just the poverty and the violence going hand in hand, just crushing opportunity for people. Now, today you tweeted that you will.
Worse.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Kimberly, it's getting much worse. It's at a level that we've never seen before. It just gets worse and worse, and all she wants to do is get the votes of the African Americans and the Hispanics. Get the votes, and then she'll say, I'll see you in four more years, because they are doing such a poor job in terms of education, crime, jobs. I mean, you look at jobs. The jobs are a disaster. But it is a very, very sad thing. They want their votes, and they'll never hear from them again.
All right, and you're making a direct play and outreach for that. And today I noticed a tweet that you said you're going to fix the failing poverty, crime, and educational statistics in these minority communities, which you said is largely a result of the local leadership. Some of the worst cities, like you said, have Democratic mayors. Let me ask you this. In terms of some bipartisanship, will you be able to work with those mayors to try to resolve and fix some of these issues?
Well, I think it would be, and I think we would be, but I will say that it'll probably start changing around, because once they see the improvement in crime, it's so unfair to have a mother walking down a street with a young daughter or a young boy and somebody gets shot, whether it's the mother or the child. It's happening all the time. You look at what's happening in the communities. You look at the tremendous violence. And we can stop that immediately. We can, over a longer period of time, fix the education. We can fix the jobs by bringing our jobs back into this country. Hillary Clinton can never do that. She doesn't have the ability to do that. She wouldn't know where to begin, and she doesn't want to do it, because all she wants is their votes. And that's what's been happening for many years.
And you're saying, why not give you a shot in the Republican Party? What do they have to lose? So that seems to be resonating with people.
I always say it. I say, I will do a great job. Give me a shot. I will do a great job. And you watch. I will do a fantastic job. Security, education, jobs. Nobody's going to be able to do it like I'm going to do it.
All right, let's talk about another area of interest to me as a former prosecutor, is the Clinton email scandal. Could this get worse? And do you have any idea about what Julian Assange is going to release? He's been saying this is going to be an October surprise of significance that could affect her campaign. He said if the media will cover it.
I have no idea, but I can imagine that it would be very bad. But if you look how bad it is right now. But it sounds like it's going to be very, very earth-shattering. We'll see what happens. I will say this. When she deleted 33,000 emails, those emails had some really bad stuff on them, because look at the ones that they found. And these are probably a lot worse. And then not only did they delete them, they used a method of deletion that you can never get them back. You saw that yesterday for the first time. So she knew what she was deleting. It's a criminal act. She knew exactly what she was deleting. And
using that kind of extensive, bleaching technique, et cetera, shows a consciousness of guilt, we would argue, as a prosecutor. Yeah.
It's very expensive, probably, I don't know, foolproof. I don't know. I hear the NSA maybe has the emails. A lot of people say NSA would have the emails if they really wanted to get them. But obviously they don't want to get them. They're protecting her. They're coddling her. And it's the only way she can even consider running. I mean, she shouldn't be allowed to run. But to use that method of getting permanently rid of emails that most people never even heard of, even sophisticated people never heard of it, and it's a very expensive. So she knows what was on those emails, and it was very, very bad. And maybe somebody should, in fact, ask the NSA whether or not they have the emails.
All right, and to tag along to that, do you think that the FBI should actually open up a new investigation? Because we saw Comey really lay the case, make the case out, and then say, oh, but the DOJ should not prosecute her or file charges. But if there are new emails, perhaps the investigation should be reopened or a new one started.
Well, it's very sad because everybody knew that she was very guilty in the last runaround, the last go-around, I guess you could say, and you look at what happened and you look at the way the ruling came down, and it was shocking to people. In fact, everybody said, oh, wow, listen to that. And then all of a sudden at the end it was like, however, we're not going to do anything. It was a very, very sad day, I think, for law enforcement in this country. And believe me, the world is watching and the world is laughing. They can't believe that this is happening to the United States.
And you say that you would be the law and order candidate. And in fact, if you're elected the next president of the United States, would you continue this investigation into her email scandal?
Well, I'll talk to you about that at a later date, but certainly that's something that would be a possibility. And we're looking at that very seriously. This is a very, very great mark on the United States, and people are very, very upset. You know, I'm a big fan of the FBI. I always have been, and that they would have done this is, to me, hard to believe. And then, of course, Justice Department with the meeting with Bill Clinton in the back of an airplane. These things have never happened in our country. What's going on with our country and with law enforcement, these are things that have never happened.
Right. It definitely is casting some doubt on the, integrity of the justice system, and certainly we don't want that. But let me get back to immigration for a moment, because many are saying that your stance on immigration has changed. You have a lot of people opining on this, but I want to ask you directly, do you believe in amnesty, and are you softening your tone?
My stance is very strong. It's going to remain very strong. There will be no amnesty. There's no legalization. We're going to build a wall. It's going to be a tremendous, powerful wall. We're going to have great technology along with the wall, and we're going to stop people from coming in. Day one, we're going to get all of the gang members and the gang leaders and the drug dealers and all of these people that have illegally crossed and they've been in our country. We're going to get them out very, very, very fast. And we will, number one, I have to secure, and we have to secure the border. We're going to secure the border like it's never been secured before. We're going to stop the drugs from coming in. We're going to stop certain people, criminal elements from coming in. And then we shall see what we shall see.
Well, you know, as a prosecutor, I found it very frustrating that we were not observing and enforcing the laws that are on the books, and that people would be a revolving door coming back in. I was a prosecutor in San Francisco, you know, and then the Kate Steinle case, tragedies like this. But at the same time, obviously you want to follow the laws on the books, but you have talked about mass deportation, and then also you have said that you have had families and people come forward to you. What about families that have been here 11 or 12 years that are established in the country? How do you feel about them now?
Well, what we're going to do, and again, we're going to secure the border, and once the border is secured and we get rid of the criminal elements, which I'm going to start before the wall, before anything, we're going to start that day one, we will look into various situations. But again, people are here illegally, and we have to remember that. They're here illegally. We have many people, Kimberly, trying to come into our country, and they're going through a legal process, and they're waiting online to come into our country. We have to remember that we have a country that's based on laws, and the people are here illegally. So we will see what we will see. But we're going to start off by securing the border, by getting rid of a horrible criminal element that's causing tremendous havoc, drug dealers, gang members, etc. And I think people will be extremely happy. And I'll be announcing something within the next 2 weeks, a very comprehensive plan on immigration.
All right, I'm sure many people will be looking forward to that. And let's talk a little bit about your campaign. You've had some recent changes. You brought someone on that I admire, Kellyanne Conway, as your campaign manager. To note specifically, that's the first female campaign manager for a presidential election. So that is something that is historically establishing, a new first. And then also you brought on Breitbart News Chairman Steve Bannon as the CEO. How do you see these two changes, these two new hires have impacted your campaign?
Well, I think they're going to be great. I mean, it's new, and they've just started, but they've both been doing very well, and I think that they are going to be a great addition. I will say, you see the polls are getting very, very close. Some of the individual states are literally, we're winning in some of the big states, and so I think you're probably seeing that. I assume you're reporting on it at some point.
Yes.
You probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but we've been doing very well over the last week and a half or 2 weeks.
Yeah, the polls definitely, we're seeing a tightening in the polls, and also in some of the numbers with the Hispanic community as well. Some of those numbers have just come out, so that is significant. And let's talk about this. A lot of people that know you, that have known you for many, many years, talk about, your temperament, your tone, somebody that your son, Eric, has called you, a humble man, people that work for you like you. But you have also said that you had some regrets when it comes to some of the things that you have said during this campaign. Is there anything specifically that you feel at this point that you regret, or do you want to reach out to different communities or people?
Well, I just, we're running a campaign. I think we're doing a good job. We started off with 17 people. We're now down to 1. I've never done it before. I'm a businessman. I built a great business, an unbelievable company with some of the great assets of the world, some of the great real estate assets of the world. And, I'm having fun doing this, where it's a movement. As you know, when we go out and speak, when we have events, we get numbers that nobody has really gotten before. I mean, probably ever. They talk about it as though ever. Your friend Bill O'Reilly said this, that he's never seen. It's the greatest political phenomena that he's ever seen. The rallies that we have are amazing. And I will say this, on temperament, I think temperament, and a lot of people have said that know me, that maybe my greatest strength is my temperament, and I have a temperament that wins. I have a winning temperament. Hillary Clinton is really unfit to be president, and you see that with all of the things that she's done, all of the lies, all of the deception, the emails, all of the terrible, terrible things that she's done. She's really unfit to be president. I think as far as I'm concerned, that they have a Madison Avenue term, but I think probably maybe one of my greatest assets, if not my greatest asset, Kimberly, is temperament. I know how to win, and I have a winning temperament, and that's what our country needs. We don't win anymore. We're going to start winning again.
All right. Mr. Trump, thank you so much for being with us here tonight and going on the record.
Thank you very much, Kimberly.
And just before joining us right here, Trump sat down for a small business owners roundtable at his Las Vegas hotel. And in a little bit, Trump is attending a Nevada Republican Party dinner. Fox's campaign Carl Cameron is in Las Vegas. Carl, so there you go. You're right where the action is.
Hi, Kimberly. Yeah, I tell you what, it was Hispanic leaders, too, at that meeting this afternoon. And tonight he'll be in Lake Tahoe for a meeting with the Nevada Republican Party. And we were told today that will be something that cameras will be allowed to shoot. And we expect that there will be some news on Trump's economic and jobs plan tonight. And he just made some news with you in that interview, saying that he was going to come up with, quote, a comprehensive immigration plan sometime in the next couple of weeks. Indeed, that has been a big question in the last few days. There was a planned immigration speech that was scheduled for yesterday that was put off, in part because of the controversy over his remarks with Sean Hannity earlier in the week, when he said that he would soften part of his plan to deport the undocumented immigrants, the illegal aliens who are in the country now, somewhere near 11 million of them. Now, that caused quite a firestorm and quite a blowback from conservatives who thought that was a flip-flop. And Trump has now reversed himself to say that there will be no legalization, which he repeated in your interview there. But that raises a question. If people want to have legal status, if the illegal immigrants here want to be legalized, according to Mr. Trump, they will have to go to their home country and come back lawfully. Then there are those hardened criminals who he said on day one he would start going after to deport. And it raises a question. What of the illegal immigrants who are afraid to come forward and leave the country in order to come back, who may decide to stay here? And if that is where he's talking about softening the rhetoric, he's going to run into problems with folks like Ann Coulter and Sarah Palin and others who don't want to see a Republican presidential candidate, a nominee now, flip-flopping on immigration policy, having been through years and years of fights over this. In fact, the term comprehensive immigration reform was what the Marco Rubio bill was referred to as, what George W. Bush was advocating for, and way back in 2008, fully 8 years ago, what John McCain was advocating for. And it never got past the Republican House conservatives. It did get through the Senate on a couple of occasions, but it hadn't gotten any further than that. So in 2 weeks, if that's when Mr. Trump is going to be outlining that, it will clarify what has been perhaps the most provocative and controversial aspect of the entire debate, other than the racial bigotry that both Clinton and Trump accuse one another of.
Yes,
Kimberly?
and you heard it right here. He said he's going to have that comprehensive immigration plan, so the specifics will be there for people to decide and then cast their votes appropriately. All right, Carl, thanks so much. Stay cool in Vegas.
Thank you.
And protesters sparring with a prominent Donald Trump supporter right outside Trump Tower. Pastor Mark Burns getting into it with a person claiming to be an undocumented immigrant. Take a look.
Do you support a racist? Can I get a yes or no answer? Do you support
Donald Trump is not a racist?
So you support a racist?
No,
okay.
And
so do you want my family? You want me and my family to get deported? You want my mother and my little sister to be separated?
Just because you're loud,
so do you want my mother?
Just because you are talking louder than me, don't make you right. Don't make it proper.
I'm not asking. I'm asking you a question. I'm not saying a statement. I'm asking you a question.
There is a proper way.
Do you want my mother and my father to be deported?
What I am saying is,
do you want my little sister to be separated from my mother? But do you want my mother and my father to be deported?
Trump is not a racist.
But do you want my mother and my father to be deported?
Do you want to continue to lie and wrong characteristics of a person?
Do you answer the question?
All right, Pastor Burns, can I get a witness? All right, you were in Trump Tower for a roundtable with minority leaders, and you are the co-founder and CEO of Now Television Network. You joins us. Wow, this was this unbelievable situation there. How did you feel? Because you were trying to speak, and the man was not listening. He was shouting questions. You were trying to defend someone that you support, correct?
Sure, absolutely.
Mr. Trump, to say that he is not a racist.
Well, you know, again, it happened so quickly. I actually brought the gentleman along because I wanted to hear his concerns, thinking that we was going to have a logical, intelligent conversation. And then obviously he persists to yell and not really hear. And I think some people think that the louder they talk, you know, that makes it more convincing and right and accurate. And for me, I just had enough of him yelling and screaming and incorrect information. Donald Trump being a racist. Donald Trump being a racist. The moment he began the conversation with incorrect information, the conversation became invalid. So therefore, there was no need to continue the conversation.
You know, when you take a look at that, it's just a little bit of a snapshot of some of the struggle, the strife, and some of the vitriol that you can see back and forth on both sides for those that support Donald Trump or those that support Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Some of the things we've been seeing in, communities that are struggling, some of the protests coming forward from Black Lives Matter. You know, as a black man in this country, one that supports Trump, what is the solution? How do you bring people together when they won't even listen to one another?
Well, the biggest thing I think is got to start with the leadership. You know, again, our current president, Barack Obama, I think, as infamously known as our divider in chief. I mean, he really had an amazing opportunity to become a international voice of unification, of bringing people together. But he's chose in certain cases to be really one-sided when instead of being the unifier to bring our country together. And it's really I think that what you're seeing right now is not caused by Barack Obama. It's sure not caused by Donald Trump. It is, years of frustration between the races because our country is almost built on racial tension. But it's got to first start with the leaders. We got to first get rid of the adjectives that describe us. We got to stop being African American or Hispanic American. We got to just start seeing ourselves just as Americans. And the moment we stop focusing on those colors that really divide us, then we can really begin to start focusing on the colors that unite us. That's the vision of Dr. King.
Well, and so let me ask you this. So obviously you support Mr. Trump, and you mentioned here the vision of Dr. King. What would you say to these communities, minority communities that are struggling and looking for jobs and good schools and choices for their children in education? Why should they choose Mr. Trump?
Well, because obviously in mass, African Americans have been voting Democrat for over 50 years. That is facts. And after in the 50 years that we've been voting Democrats, what do we have to show for? I think our educational those in African American communities are still at what I call the bottom of the topo. We're not at the level that we need to be. And if you're understanding your frustrations and you really, really want to see change, we can't keep making those same decisions expecting a different result to take place. Donald Trump wants to make sure that we empower our local businesses so we can truly bring jobs back to our country.
And he's saying to those communities in a meeting of outreach, take a chance on him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
do they have to lose? All right, Pastor, thank you. Always a pleasure.
So happy to see you.
And Donald Trump making big news right here in an interview you saw on the record. Our political panel is next to talk about that. Also, one college standing up and saying no censorship, and some students are loving it. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
772-8600.
Donald Trump making news just moments ago, right here on the record. You say that you would be the law and order candidate, and in fact, if you're elected the next president of the United States, would you continue this investigation into her email scandal?
Well, I'll talk to you about that at a later date, but certainly that's something that would be a possibility, and we're looking at that very seriously. This is a very, very great mark on the United States, and people are very, very upset. You know, I'm a big fan of the FBI. I always have been, and that they would have done this is, to me, hard to believe. And then, of course, Justice Department with the meeting with Bill Clinton in the back of an airplane. These things have never happened in our country. What's going on with our country and with law enforcement, these are things that have never happened.
Well, not only did he say he may investigate Clinton if elected president of the United States, Trump making more news right here, saying he will have a comprehensive immigration plan out in 2 weeks. The On the Record political panel is here from the Washington Post, Catherine Ramble, and from the Wall Street Journal, Glenn Hall. I thank you for joining me tonight. So we have a couple of things to kind of work through. Glenn, what do you think about this? He said he's going to have a comprehensive immigration plan. There's been a lot of back and forth saying, what's the specificity? Is there going to be a mass deportation? Is there going to be any kind of amnesty? He said, listen, with the criminals, the people who have violated the law, the recidivists, they got to go. We're going to get them first. And he said there will not be any amnesty.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of anticipation about this comprehensive plan for sure, because we've been struggling all week to figure out just where is he on some of these issues, because there's been this careful movement. And what does that movement mean, right? Is it a movement only of words, or is it a movement of positions? And that's what we'll be looking for. But you made a very good point there where he talked about the first steps, which is what his base wants to hear. We're going to secure the border, full stop. And then second step, no amnesty. That's another thing that they want to hear. The next question he kept saying, though, we'll see what we see when it comes to those who are still here and are not criminals and are not bringing drugs into the country and those things.
Established families.
Established families. So what will we see? That's the question.
Yeah, so there you go. Now, what was your take on it?
Well, I would add that the idea of prioritizing deporting criminals is not really a departure from what current administration policy is now. I mean, that's basically explicitly what the Obama administration has pursued. So to the extent that it's not a departure, I'm not sure that it particularly appeals to the base. I mean, I would add that as much as his hardline rhetoric appeals to the base, a lot of it potentially could alienate a lot of other voters who were sitting on the sidelines who were trying to decide who to vote for. If you look at poll data, Americans are actually not mostly in favor of mass deporting 11 million immigrants. They're in favor of a path to citizenship. Even most Republicans, like 3/4 of Republicans, say that they're in favor of a path to citizenship. So it's not entirely clear that digging in his heels on those policies are going to win over the potential swing voters he's going for.
Okay, and this is just crossing the news wires right now. The State Department saying that they will not release all meetings and emails of Hillary Clinton in advance of the election.
Well, that's going to be an interesting challenge for her, because she's got some of these things are going through the legal process right now, and the judges have been very clear about their expectations. So we're going to have to see how the State Department is going to be pushed by the legal system and all these lawsuits coming from various quarters. It's not just the Judicial Watch one. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity for this issue to remain live all the way through November.
Now, Catherine, what about the people that are going to say, look, where's the transparency? This is unfair. If they're slow walking it and putting it after the election, people should want to know if they're going to choose a president, what the truth is.
My feeling is that with the Clintons, the cover-up or the perceived cover-up is almost always worse than the crime, and I would guess that it would be in Hillary Clinton's interest, potentially, to just get the stuff out there rather than have continued speculation for the next few months.
All right, Catherine and Glenn, thank you so much for being here and going on the record. And yesterday we talked about campus censorship getting out of control, but now the University of Chicago is putting its foot down. Next. University of Chicago telling its new students Suck it up. The school's dean of students sending out a letter to incoming freshmen that reads in part, we do not support so-called trigger warnings. We do not cancel invited speakers because their topics might prove controversial. And we do not condone the creation of intellectual safe spaces. Fox Business Network correspondent Jeff Flock is live on the University of Chicago campus. Jeff, are you in a safe space to report this?
Apparently I'm not. Even with a Fox Business microphone here, we're being treated pretty well at the U of C, which is one of, Kimberly, the world's most prestigious universities. That letter that you just read from, pretty blunt. I want to give you another passage of that that was sent to the class of 2020. It says, in part, members of our community are encouraged to speak, write, listen, challenge, and learn without fear of censorship. At times, this may challenge you and even cause discomfort. The university saying that while a lot of other universities around the country have sought to minimize that discomfort, that's what education is all about. You may remember earlier this year, the speaker Ben Shapiro, conservative journalist, had problems at Cal State LA. They tried to cancel his appearance because they were afraid it would cause protests. Here in Chicago at DePaul University across town, actually there were protests at his speech. A lot of students were prohibited from being able to hear that speech. They don't want that kind of thing to happen here at the U of C. I point out, Kimberly, this is a private university. In addition to being one of the most prestigious in the world, it's one of the hardest to get into. It also has an endowment of $7.5 billion. And they apparently don't have to be subject to the political winds that some state universities and colleges have to deal with. They say here, PC is okay, non-PC is okay.
Right, I like that. I like to hear this, and I had Ben Shapiro on. He went on the record last night. We were talking about this very topic, and, I didn't get any protest, by the way. When I went to Cornell and gave a speech, I was well received, and that's the third most, liberal school in the country. So, but I'm glad you're being treated well.
Most places do use common sense, don't they? They treat people like normal people. Most people do that, but, there are a few.
Yes, open our ears and our minds, give people a chance to differ on opinions and express themselves. Jeff, thanks for that report. And Matthew Foldy, University of Chicago, president of College Republicans, goes on the record. Thanks for being with us tonight. So we just had that report talking about the school and saying, listen, come here, open your mind, be able to express yourself, and you're not going to find safe spaces.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I think that what's important to understand about the letter that was just sent out to all the freshmen is that, Dean Ellison brought a very important issue to the forefront of national discussion right now. And the University of Chicago comes from a long and storied tradition of staunch support for free speech going back decades. And the other components that all of the incoming class of 2020 received was a book written by the dean of the college, John Boyer, that goes into extensive detail about our history with free speech going back to the 1930s, 1960s. And I think what gave the administration a sense of urgency in dealing with this issue right now was we had several events on our campus. You had mentioned others in the report just now and other campuses, but we had several events on our campus shut down by protesters. And for a campus such as ours that values free speech as much as we do, that was shocking to a lot of students, faculty, and the administration. So I think that kind of spurred the administration into action by sending out this letter.
Yeah, Matthew, I want to remind our viewers that back in May that you proposed a free speech resolution for the student government there. What inspired you to do that? Were you seeing a problem that you were encountering, so there was a need, therefore, to move forward compellingly to make sure that there was free speech and it was being respected?
Definitely. We have this history of supporting free speech, and we had two events before I proposed that resolution. One that was shut down, Anita Alvarez, and the other that was shut down was Basamit. I was at the EAT event, and one of the protesters in attendance shouted at him that he was going to blow up his car. And I was sitting there in the audience, and I was astonished that this kind of concept that I've read all about in terms of students shutting down events had come to our campus. And in the course of proposing this resolution, that I had attracted the support of around 50 faculty members from the complete ideological spectrum. To see it ultimately tabled indefinitely by student government was kind of shocking to me, and I learned a lot about just how much our institution has meant to free speech. And to see this happen on our campus,
right.
I was talking with administration after, and I think they realized just how important kind of sending this message to students before they even got to campus would be.
You got to eventually leave college and go into the real world and into private practice and into the free market, and they're not going to give you, nap time in a safe space in the corner by the water cooler. You've got to prepare kids to get the education and work hard and, be able to protect themselves and stick up for themselves and not be looking for other people to do it. Matthew, exactly. I know you've attended a few of Greta's town halls, and we appreciate that most certainly. We want to thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, stay strong. And a brewing Starbucks iced coffee lawsuit, say it ain't so, melting down in federal court. A California man filed a class action lawsuit against the coffee giant, claiming Starbucks misled customers about the size of its iced drinks. Oh dear. The man said baristas were using too much ice and not enough coffee, but a federal judge tossing out the case like old grinds. All right, ice hydrates you. Now, you may remember when the lawsuit was first filed, On the Record sent Ted Williams to do an in-depth, unscientific, but highly entertaining investigation.
I am now pouring the ice out of the coffee into a measuring cup. When we measure this and we turn it around, it comes to about 14 to 16 ounces.
We're going to add mad scientist to Ted's resume because he's done everything else. That's fantastic. I love it. Well, a similar case is currently pending in Chicago. And a grisly murder mystery, and you'll never guess who was murdered. 2 Catholic nuns, my goodness. And the manhunt for the killer is on, and that's next. Plus, rescuers in Italy still holding out hope that they will find more earthquake survivors. We are going to take you to Italy coming up. A horrific and disgusting murder mystery. 2 Catholic nuns murdered, stabbed to death in their Mississippi home. And right now, the killer or killers are still on the loose. Fox Mississippi reporter Courtney Ann Jackson is live in Durant, Mississippi. Courtney Ann.
Kimberly, a lot of folks in this small community asking why tonight. The reward has been upped to $22,500 as of tonight. The bodies of sisters Margaret Held and Paula Merrill were found here inside their Durant, Mississippi home yesterday. Investigators found those bodies when the 2 did not show up for work. They were instructed to come here for a welfare check. That's when they located those bodies. The 2 served as nurse practitioners at a nearby clinic in Lexington, Mississippi. That's about 10 miles from here at their home in Durant. Their car was missing when investigators arrived on the scene, but last night it was located about a mile away from here in a secluded area of town behind a grocery store. That car, along with evidence from the scene, is being processed at the state crime lab tonight. Meanwhile, we are learning more about who the 2 women were. I've learned that they had been serving in Mississippi for about 30 years. They are from Milwaukee and Boston, but they met here in Mississippi and decided that Holmes County was a good area that they should serve because this area has many people who are living below the poverty line, and they had really committed their lives to serving this community and helping make those people's lives just a little bit easier. That's the other reason that this murder has sent shockwaves around this small community, because people are really wondering why someone would want to hurt them and who that could be. And now investigators are hoping that someone will step up with information and let them know who this might have been. Crime tape still up around this home, as many people just driving by slowly as we've been here today, wondering what in the world happened here today. Back to you, Kimberly.
All right, Courtney Ann, thank you, and say your prayers tonight for them. So sad. Catch the killers. And aftershocks continuing to rattle central Italy, and it's making rescuers' jobs even harder. On the Record takes you to Italy next. Get ready to speed read the news. Judge Aaron Persky, the California judge who gave Stanford rapist Brock Turner just 6 months in jail, will no longer hear criminal cases. Judge Persky voluntarily reassigning himself to civil court. Brock Turner, a former Stanford swimmer, admitted to raping a drunk classmate, but Judge Persky went easy on him. Turner will be released from jail just 1 week from today. Has blamed the price hike on Obamacare. Side note, her salary has also increased more than 600%. And Sir Richard Branson is lucky to be alive. The daredevil billionaire Virgin founder crashing his bike on the British Virgin Islands. Branson was riding at night, training for a charity race when he hit a speed bump. As he flew through the air, Branson says his life flashed before his eyes. The 66-year-old suffering a cracked cheek, torn ligaments, and severe cuts. Branson joking the worst part is that he now has to drink tea from a straw. And that's tonight's Speed Read. And developing now, aftershocks shaking rescuers as they desperately dig through rubble from a devastating earthquake in central Italy. The enormous death toll rising to nearly 270. And 3 days after the massive quake, time may be running out. Fox News foreign correspondent John Huddy is live in Norcia, Italy. John.
Yeah, well, Kimberly, it is now early Saturday morning here, and Italy's government has declared today a day of mourning for all of those earthquake victims. This as the search continues for survivors, but that search effort, Kimberly, has been really hampered by the ongoing and constant, strong and for many people frightening aftershocks. Yesterday morning, early Friday morning, there was a 4.8 magnitude tremor that rocked the villages and towns that were leveled. By Wednesday morning, 6.2 magnitude earthquake, and there have been hundreds of aftershocks since then. All of this adding another problematic layer to the already exhaustive search and rescue efforts, now slowly, unfortunately, and painfully becoming a recovery operation. The stories of survival have given some hope that more people will be found, but time is absolutely running out. Critical roads and bridges that lead into the towns have been damaged by these constant aftershocks, making them impassable in some areas for the heavy equipment, the excavators, the bulldozers that are desperately needed to help. Still, 5,000 rescuers continue to work around the clock. As we've seen, we went to one of the relief and aid camps with teams now going into some of the more remote villages and hamlets looking for possibly more survivors. This, as we're learning now, Kimberly, that the death toll has risen to close to 280 people, actually right around 280 people. And as we've seen, sadly, that number could continue to rise. Kimberly, back to you.
Wow, and it just has risen. We did the initial report 270, now 280. John, thank you for that excellent report, and we are praying still. And coming up, it's Friday and National Dog Day, so let's have some fun next, shall we? And here at On the Record, we are celebrating National Dog Day, and here is the cutest look at some of the On the Record team's furry friends. We're going to share it with you. This is our producer, Justin Wells' dog Slater, a 5-year-old French bulldog. Adorable. Check out that face. And here's Samantha Del Fiore Fox's dog, 12-year-old Thunder. What a cute name, right? This is Abby Danzig's dog, Shay, and her best friend, Charlotte, cutie patooties. Next is Emily Lynn's dogs, Mo, Mia, Mercy, and Milo. I love the alliteration. They're adorable. And here's Brian Story's Shetland sheepdog, Penny. This is Laura Dunham's dog, Darla. And here's Carrie Flatley's dogs, Charlie, Tucker, and Tilly. This is Griff Jenkins' dog, Rascal. Let me tell you something. Right? Like the owner, a rascal. Next up, Liz Fanning's dog, Ruby, and her dog's best friend, Thomas. Dogs, in fact, do have best friends. And last but certainly not least, we have Charlie Cougar's dog, George. And of course, you probably saw us playing with pups on the 5 today. We had a ton of fun with the New York Humane Society, and each of us had our own puppy. I made friends with little Francois. Look at him, little Maltipoo, and then Dana and Greg had little matching chihuahuas that were adorable. So we had a lot of fun. Bowling's dog, she wanted out. She was like jumping around and trying to get to escape. You can't get enough of this, right? It's adorable. And we have my dog Bella, little Belinia. We got a little picture. There she is. And everyone was like, wow, I didn't know you had a dog. And then people asked me, is that a real dog? Because she sort of sat there motionless. What a good girl. Well, this has been a lot of fun. And, invite a dog into your home. That's all we have for now. We're going to see you again Monday night right here at 7 Eastern. Never miss me and the rest of the gang on the 5 weeknights at 5 p.m. Eastern. And don't miss an incredible Fox Business Network special with Greta.